So this is Run the Numbers. My name is Jason. We're doing a video here, part of the warm-up series. It's also a video part of the 100 videos in 100 days challenge I've made for myself as a way to make sure I have a whole lot of content out there. Hopefully it's helping you on your personal finance journey. And yeah, today's topic is gonna be a good one. It's part of the series I've been doing. You can almost think of this as kind of a series within a series. This particular series is where I'm kind of evaluating, giving some more specific details about banking solutions that I use, particular ones. Not an exhaustive list of all the banking solutions I use, but I've happened to have chose 5 of them I've already covered in a previous video. I'll put the link in the description. That video is Take It to the Bank, 5 banking solutions, where I kind of go in more broad strokes as to those banking solutions. And so here I go into more details. So yeah, join me now as I walk through beautiful Los Angeles. We got now, finally, after all these storms, we have a sunny day. So stay with me. It's a little bit windy, but hopefully you can hear as I cover my thoughts specifically about Capital One. So today we're covering 4 things about Capital One. This will sound a little bit familiar because I kind of like to cover analysis into these 4 different categories, these 4 different bullet points. That's similar to my analysis I did of Chase Bank. I'll also put this video link in the description, which was my take on Chase Bank. So the 4 things that will sound familiar to that previous video are 4 things to really get us thinking about. And the first one is something of a history, how we got here, give you some context. Second of the 4 is then, what's my current use, the specifics of how I'm using, in this case, Capital One, how I'm a customer. And the third of the 4 is then something of a listing out pros and cons, putting some things out there as to some of the likes and the dislikes. So that kind of likes, dislikes discussion. And then the fourth of the 4 items is, where do we go from here and what the future brings as I continue to be a customer of Capital One. All right, let's dive right into it, moving right along, and talk about some context as to how I became a Capital One customer. Well, the answer there is I kind of became rolled into being a Capital One customer. Way back in the day, I actually had an account with ING Direct. And if I'm not mistaken, Capital One ended up kind of a something of a merger acquisition. There's something of a swallowing up of the customers that were ING Direct. I was one of them. And I think even before that, now that I think about it, I became in the ING Direct family of operations. I think it was that I had another account. I want to say it was like Orange Savings. If any of that rings a bell to anybody out there, put a link, put a comment out on this video of, oh yeah, it was called, I want to say something like Orange Savings or something. It was so long ago. Of course, you're welcome to go look in all of this up. But what I want to give here as context is just to say I kind of got rolled from one bank to another bank. And that sometimes can be jarring, and then you'd want to close accounts. But I've actually been happy to keep things alive here with Capital One. So maybe I should go into why I continue to keep things open and how I'm using it now. And so let's dovetail this into the second of the 4 total things to mention here, and that is, what's my current use of Capital One? Well, I happen to have a whole lot of use, a whole lot of things with Capital One, of credit cards and some other things that I don't need to get into here because I want to keep focus on really the 3 things I have in terms of checking and savings in that flavor of being a customer at Capital One. So the first of the 3 accounts I have open is just a checking account. Pretty standard, nothing to sneeze at. I barely have a couple bucks in it. I just simply don't really need or use it. I don't need to close it. I can just keep it open. It doesn't really do any harm. So that just kind of is there. I don't know, maybe something of a placeholder. It's just it just kind of stands alone there. The second of accounts I have is a 360 savings account. That too, I only have a couple bucks in it. It as well just kind of is easy enough to keep it open and active, but I don't in fact utilize it all that much. And the thing maybe that I utilize more so compared to the other 2 is an account that gets a little bit better in terms of some return, some interest bearing on the funds within, is that I have a 360 performance savings account that gets a little bit better in terms of the interest yield for that account. I should say for the first 2 accounts, just the checking and the standard 360 savings, the interest, the APY yield, it's basically next to nothing. So I basically kind of round out to 0. I don't even pay attention to it. The 360 performance one is moderately okay. I think as I'm filming this now, it's in the 4% to up towards 4. I want to say it might be 4.25. I haven't looked at it in a little bit, but it's a little bit more. 4.25% is nothing to sneeze at. So I have very small amount of funds, more than a couple bucks, but definitely not anywhere where I'm gonna park a whole lot of funds to really have the hopes to earn a whole lot of interest yield on it, because I can get out of the 4% range and get into the 5% range with some other solutions. So that's why, I don't pay all that much attention to it, and I just kind of have small amounts of funds, and I don't need to close down the account or worry too much about it. But it's nice to sort of keep this in the mix, diversify this use across all the banking I do. So that rounds out, how I'm using it now. I should put into the mix, as much as I have told you details of the accounts, I should give some details as to what I really like and how I'm using Capital One is the actual interaction, the actual sort of the mechanics of my banking, and that I like to go to physical locations, and Capital One does a great job in that they have a great offering, and that is Capital One Cafes. If you're not familiar with Capital One Cafes, they're actual retail branch, they're physical locations where they kind of combine a workspace and a cafe, and then they also have kind of different kind of places. Some of them I think I've seen are kind of almost like little standing desks, and other kind of places where they have actual Capital One employees, people there to help and assist if you need to do any sort of banking. You can get that help right there. I feel like this is a good thing. I'm a fan. I like it. I like to go there, of course, to do a little work, get work done. And then, I think it's like a good way to blend that if I need to go and get some work done, enjoy the kind of cafe portion to it. And then as well, I can get, some of my banking needs accomplished as well. So I'm a big fan of that. So let me now make that dovetail into the third of our 4 total items that we're going to talk about, and that is an analysis, kind of likes, dislikes. And I'll say right off the bat, since I've talked a lot about these Capital One cafes, it brings a smile to my face. I think that they're, a good thing. So I'll put that in the likes category. These Capital One cafes, I think I get friendly service. Just everything about it. I'm thumbs up. I feel like it's in the like category. If there's anything actually to put in the dislikes category, is that there's not enough of the Capital One cafes. When I first moved here to Los Angeles, there was a Capital One cafe. There might have actually been a couple of Capital One cafes that they've since closed those locations. And yeah, I was kind of thoroughly disappointed. I still have some that are nearby that are still walkable, or I could go on a run and still make it there without needing to drive, which I try to avoid. So that's to say, close proximity. So they do have some, but yeah, I just wish that they would have a bit more. So that might go in the dislikes category. Is that they're few and far between of these Capital One cafes that I like. Something in the like category is that they have a good ATM network. So I've mentioned about all these solutions that I have my money in, and if I need to put money in in person or take money out, of course, is some of their ATM use. I'm not worried or any way, in a jam needing to use the whole ATM network that is attached to Capital One. I should also say, as much as I've kind of put some of these positives, something of a negative, so in the dislike column, is that, they have these offerings that are decent, but they're not like amazing, and they're not the winners in each of the ways I like to do. I like to think of banking in that, this is the winner of where I'm going to get the best yield, and I'm going to park a whole lot of money, or this is a winner because it gives this or that convenience over all the other things I'm looking at, or kind of all these ways to kind of look at banking. And the things I've mentioned, they're kind of the B team, the JV team. So it's not the best. So I guess that's the way to say it's a dislike, that I'm not going to put in a whole lot of money just because I know, I can do better elsewhere. So if things change in the future, if they make some improvement, that could be where all of a sudden I'll say, they moved up from the JV team not only to the varsity team, but even like they're the All-American, they're the All-Stars. So they have room for improvement and jumping up some levels. But for now, I'm just gonna leave it that they do okay, but not enough to win crazy amounts of my funds going into Capital One accounts. So let's now conclude for the fourth of the four items and mention as to where we go from here. What does the future bring as I'm a Capital One customer? Well, I'll answer that to say kind of more of the same. I'll kind of keep the status quo, that I will keep a small amount of funds. As my funds grow, of course, it will become even a smaller and smaller percentage, kind of fraction of the total amount of my wealth. In that, I won't put in a whole lot more because I know I can just kind of beat it elsewhere. And I'm talking about just the standard checking and savings accounts. So maybe things might differ if they offer something else. But in terms of checking and savings, I'll just kind of keep what I got. I don't see any harm to kind of keep it around, so I don't need to close my accounts. There's no, requirements or restrictions or anything where it's harmful to keep the accounts. I mentioned a little bit in a video, and I'll put the link in the description, when I said an analysis about Chase Bank. I do feel a harm and restrictions that I have minimum balances to meet and all these different things with Chase Bank. I don't feel that with Capital One, so I'll keep the accounts open at Capital One. But will I flood in a whole lot of my funds? That as well, won't be the case. So that's to kind of leave you there, that it'll kind of be more of just kind of treading water of how I'm a customer at Capital One. But I also say, you know, they've won my business so far, a little amount of my business, but you know, they also have the opportunity to, you know, come out with some amazing new things in the future. So it's not written in stone, and I'll keep an open mind that maybe, yeah, maybe in the future they'll have something else that'll surprise me, and I'll put a whole lot more funds for what they bring with what they could surprise me with. All right, I'll leave you there. Those are my thoughts on Capital One. All right, gotta run.